Hello there everyone, and welcome to another instalment of Prager FU, the series where I dissect and debunk the paid shill bullshittery of the truly fucking dreadful YouTube channel, which masquerades as a university, PragerU, and after I'm done ripping apart their arguments, I simply say, hey Prager, F you. I'm so smart and funny it should be a fucking crime. And today, we finally get round to the video that you all knew was coming. Yep, it's lobster time, bitches. The man, the myth, the legend, well certainly a legend in the mind of his cultish devotees, Jordan B. Peterson will grace us with his derpitude. Fun times. As we take a look at the PragerU video, Dangerous People Are Teaching Your Kids, a title which suggests that neither Peterson nor PragerU have any semblance of self-awareness whatsoever. Classic intellectual dark webbery. Now this video is such quintessential Petersonian bullshit that if you've seen one Peterson talk, you basically already know what he's going to say. But anyways, take it away, broken record.
You may not realize it, but you are currently funding some dangerous people.
Yes, a lot of people are currently funding a very dangerous bastard called Jordan Peterson on Patreon. Disturbing stuff.
They are indoctrinating young minds throughout the West with their resentment-ridden ideology. They have made it their life's mission to undermine Western civilization itself, which they regard as corrupt, oppressive, and patriarchal. If you're a taxpayer, or paying for your kid's liberal arts degree, you're underwriting this gang of nihilists. You're supporting ideologues who claim that all truth is subjective, that all sex differences are socially constructed, and that Western imperialism is the sole source of all third world problems. They are the Post-Modernists.
Gotta love it here that Peterson is saying that these, as yet unspecified boogeymen, have a resentment-driven ideology, given that he refers to them by his hateful buzzwords of nihilist and postmodernist, and even calls them dangerous in the title of the video, for fuck's sake. Also, here he just shows that he doesn't actually understand the words he uses, as he says that these dangerous people have an overarching societal theory which views Western civilization as corrupt, oppressive and patriarchal. But then he says that these people are postmodernists, which doesn't make any fucking sense given that postmodernism is opposed to the concept of overarching grand societal theories. Peterson is just plain fucking wrong on this one, and I'm not surprised as in this video he is just flinging as much shit at the wall as possible, hoping that enough of it will stick to convince PragerU's derp fanbase. Also, Lobster Boy, please do tell me who these people are that state categorically that all of the third world's problems are solely caused by Western imperialism. I won't hold my breath on that citation.
They are the Postmodernists, pushing progressive activism at a college near you. They produce the mobs that violently shut down campus speakers.
Most student protests are peaceful, as you well fucking know, so your focus on only the violent ones suggests that you hate the freedoms of the peaches as used by these people, which makes you a commie Nazi, commie, postmodernist, nihilist, fash commie. Long live the Lobsterachy!
The language police, who enshrine into law use of fabricated gender pronouns.
2 points here. Firstly, nobody is trying to force you legally to use any pronouns, you lying bastard. I've already covered Peterson's Bill C-16 bullshit before. But suffice it to say, the Canadian Bar Association, you know, people with relevant training, experience and expertise in such matters, disagree completely with Peterson's transphobic scaremongering dipshittery about supposed compelled speech in regard to gender pronouns. Links below if you want to read more about that. And secondly, what's this shit about fabricated gender pronouns? Surely all pronouns are fabricated. They don't just spring up from nature like a fucking vegetable or a tree or something. Humans invented all of the available pronouns, and we can make a million more if we want to. Shit moves on, Grandpa. Fucking deal with it.
And the deans whose livelihoods depend on madly rooting out discrimination, where little or none exists.
And of course, the evil dean is a woman, because as H. Bomber Guy Orini once said,
you can tell it's feminist because there's worms in it.
Which is just clever misogynist presentation there, Peterson. Well done. Dennis Prager has taught you well in the dark arts of propaganda, you scumbag. And as for your claim here, well, it's backed up by nothing, so I'll give it what it deserves, by responding to it with nothing.
Their thinking took hold in Western universities in the 60s and 70s, when the true believers of the radical left became the professors of today.
The radical left! Jordan, I'd love to see some evidence for this supposed takeover in the 1960s by these hippie commies or whatever the fuck you've dreamt up for yourself in your own head. Again, I won't be holding my breath for that citation either.
And now we rack up education-related debt. not so that our children learn to think critically, write clearly, or speak properly,
but because right-wing economic ideologue boomers like Jordan Peterson have commodified education, just like they have everything else, because they couldn't possibly just see education for its mind-expanding, society-enhancing beauty that it fucking provides. No, they have to put a dollar sign on everything, and further saddle generations of kids who are already going to have to pay for the boomers' wild general economic mismanagement with the debt of college tuition loans as well. What a selfish group of bastards. Long will they live in infamy.
and now we rack up education-related debt, not so that our children learn to think critically, write clearly, or speak properly, but so they can model their mentor's destructive agenda. It's now possible to complete an English degree and never encounter Shakespeare, one of those dead white males.
Possible, Jordan. It's possible to complete certain English courses without focusing on Shakespeare. And so what exactly? Some courses allow you to focus on the work of other writers in the English canon, which doesn't preclude them being able to focus on Shakespeare in any of the courses, if they so choose. Just that it's possible not to do so in some of them, which is fine because some courses will focus on different time periods or subject matter, making Shakespeare a silly thing to mandate in said courses. Also, what the fuck is it with these right-wing hacks and their opposition to academic freedom? They should be fucking ashamed of themselves.
To understand and oppose the Post-Modernists, the ideas by which they orient themselves must be clearly identified. First is their new unholy trinity of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Unholy. Jordan B. Lobsterman Peterson considers these things to be unholy. Okay, lunatic, what you fucking got for us?
Diversity is defined not by opinion, but by race, ethnicity, or sexual identity.
Actually, yes, it does still mean diversity of opinion, because JBP, universities have not been taken over by the evil SJWs, and you have not provided any evidence that they have. Also, the focus on diversity of race, ethnicity and sexual identity is part of encouraging diversity of opinion, as people from different backgrounds can bring different perspectives and life experiences to the table, enriching the culture of academia. But then again, you don't care about that. You only really care for the opinion of rich white straight men.
Equity is no longer the laudable goal of equality of opportunity, but the insistence on equality of outcome.
I find this equality of outcome canard so fucking laughable, because surely if Peterson believes in equality of opportunity, he should support the abolition of inheritance, right? Because how can a kid who grows up in slum housing possibly have the same equality of opportunity with a kid who inherits $100 billion? So, bucko, will you put your money where your mouth is and support such a policy? Well, no, of course you won't, because you're a neoliberal, grifting, shill piece of garbage.
And inclusion is the use of identity-based quotas to attain this misconceived state of equity.
And again, I go back to the point I made earlier about diversity enriching academia. Anyways, moving on.
All the classic rights of the West are to be considered secondary to these new values. Take, for example, freedom of speech, the very pillar of democracy. The postmodernists refuse to believe that people of goodwill can exchange ideas and reach consensus. Their world is instead a Hobbesian nightmare of identity groups warring for power. They don't see ideas that run contrary to their ideology as simply incorrect. They see them as integral to the oppressive system they wish to supplant, and consider it a moral obligation to stifle and constrain their expression.
Oh, God, you're so full of shit, Peterson. You being denied a platform, a microphone, and ultimately what you care about, a paycheck, to speak at university campuses is not the death of free speech, you fucking liar. Also, why the fuck should universities allow you to spew your nonsense on campus when you do videos for Prager youth spouting conspiracy theory bullshit? It is actually you, Jordan, lobster hierarchy, brutal male domination, apple cider insomniac B. Peterson, who is the real dangerous motherfucker teaching our kids.
Second is rejection of the free market, of the very idea that free voluntary trading benefits everyone. They won't acknowledge that capitalism has lifted up hundreds of millions of people, so they can, for the first time in history, afford food, shelter, clothing, transportation, even entertainment and travel.
Notice the subtle way there that he equates free voluntary trading with capitalism, as if that's the totality of what capitalism is in the real world. As if it's not the foundations of capitalist greed in the Western world that's destroying the planet, and indeed at the same time destroying the societies that live on said planet. And also, fruit-face theory motherfucker, the comfort of Western living was not brought about by capitalism, but rather curtailment of capitalist excess, as well of course as the blood, sweat and tears of the working class. Look, capitalism existed during the Industrial Revolution and the early half of the 20th century, and life was pretty fucking terrible for the vast majority of people. It wasn't until strong workplace trade unions and socialist/social democratic parties and policies became a large influence on the system that life began to improve for the bulk of people. And also, shill, capitalism doesn't get to just claim the fruits of human labour as their own and say, oh look, we created all of these things. No, motherfucker, the working classes created those things.
Those classified as poor in the US, and increasingly everywhere else, are able to meet their basic needs. Meanwhile, in once prosperous Venezuela, until recently the poster child of the campus radicals,
Venezuela, the right-wing's ever-ready wank-rag topic.
Third and finally are the politics of identity. Post-modernists don't believe in individuals. You're an exemplar of your race, sex, or sexual preference. You're also either a victim or an oppressor.
Hang on a minute, you literally just said that the left don't allow for individuality, so what's with all this different race, gender and sexual preference stuff then? It's almost like you're totally full of shit or something, because actually that's the basis of individuality, the fact that you have all of those different distinct characteristics. Also, dickhead, you know full well that it's not a binary of oppressor and oppressed. Intersectionality, you know that thing you like to talk about but don't seem to actually fucking understand, well that is a detailed examination of the way in which various identity characteristics intersect with one another, and how systems of bias and privileges interact with all of that. So it really isn't as simple as Peterson wants to make it out here. Lobsterman just wants to paint a simple picture to his simple audience, because that's ultimately Peterson's trick. He makes stupid people feel intelligent by dumbing down and lying about complicated topics. He is an intellectual charlatan of the worst kind.
Such ideas of victimization do nothing but justify the use of power and engender intergroup conflict. All these concepts originated with Karl Marx, the 19th century German philosopher.
And of course there it is, the ultimate Peterson bogeyman for his 2 minutes of hate, Karl Marx, peace be upon him. Now Peterson knows full well that in terms of social justice, Marx only really wrote about class struggle, which is but one component of the multifaceted platform of modern progressive politics. I mean, I'm pretty sure he knows better, but he also knows what pays, that being Red Scare hysterics.
We fought a decades-long Cold War to stop the spread of those murderous notions. But they're back, in the new guise of identity politics. The corrupt ideas of the postmodern Neo-Marxists should be consigned to the dustbin of history.
The corrupt ideas of the postmodern Neo-Marxists. Oh god, Jordan Peterson is basically a parody of himself at this point. What a dickhead. Anyways, also note the use of the term Neo-Marxist here, which is another phrase he is misusing, but whatever. His use of Neo-Marxist is a great example of a trend I've noticed with Peterson, that being that he tries to avoid using the phrase cultural Marxism directly, because he knows of its Nazi origin and its continued use by the far right today. And whilst Jordan likes to dog whistle to the far right, he doesn't like to actually be associated with them, because you know, you've got to keep up that thin veneer of respectability. But dear viewer, be under no illusions. When Peterson says Neo-Marxist or Post-Marxist or Neo-Marxian or some variety thereof, he means cultural Marxism. He's just too much of a fucking coward to own that shit. And basically the rest of that Prager video is Peterson saying that we need to stop the Post-Modernists. Yeah, we've all heard your fucking spiel. You broken record prick.
Solar eclipse is no cause. Solar eclipse is no cause. Solar eclipse is no cause. Solar eclipse is no cause.
So, how the fuck to sum up this dumpster fire of a video, other than pointing out how completely and utterly Peterson it all is? It is the very distillation of his Kermitoid being. It's basically just his usual shtick of saying the neo-Marxist postmodernists have taken over the universities, something young, something Hobbes, something brutal male domination. Okay, he didn't actually say the last bit, but you get the idea. It's the same old shit, and Peterson's fanatics, as ever, lapped it up. How very sad and shameful. Peterson and PragerU should be thoroughly ashamed of taking advantage of those disaffected arseholes. Yeah, so, hey Prager. F you! That shit is lobsterific. And to play us out is a clip from the world's foremost living Zizek impersonator, Peter Coffin. And whilst it's not directly about education, it does elucidate a little of Peterson's techniques for drawing in gullible young people. But anyways, thank you all for listening and watching. I will see you next time. Take it away, P-Dog.
Jordan Peterson is a profiteer who benefits the current hierarchy by re-socializing young men who didn't get it the first time around. These young men, like any other person who hasn't made it in the world have a good reason to question the world. But Jordan B. Peterson redirects the desire to question. You can be productive if you only act this way, and you understand that these certain things are things to avoid, at least if you're not going to approach them from a certain perspective. And that perspective is that you work very hard, dedicate all your time, you find a wife who's willing to stay at home with your children, who maybe is very competent in business, but knows that it's smarter to leave and start a family. You provide her with absolutely everything that she could possibly need to raise perfect children, and also bang your brains out because you think she's hot.
Very successful women, usually very attractive, very intelligent.
Do you remember the first thing he said about women who had made it in law firms and all that? The first thing he said was that they were attractive. And you got to know that that's what you're going for, man. Now here's the thing. I personally could tell you exactly how to slot yourself into the current power structures and hierarchies. I could do that. There's no reason for me not to either, because it's apparently profitable. I could tell you that you need to deny yourself any questioning of your own identity, questioning of your own place in the world, any reasons why, in fact, you may feel alienation from the world. I could tell you that you don't need any of that. I could tell you that all you have to do is follow these simple steps, these 12 simple steps, and your star will rise in the hierarchy. And as long as you're willing not to ask me why, I would seem like a guru. You would come to me for everything, and I could charge you for that knowledge. And now you understand Jordan B. Peterson.